Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hi friends, on behalf of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad, I welcome you to this video lecture on types of news reporting. News reporting basically is one of the essentials of journalism. Everything begins with reporting, and this is one area which satisfies the important informational requirements of the audience. The audience needs to know about what is happening, and we as reporters or journalists, we provide this information to the audience which requires these information for their everyday lives. So let's begin our lecture. We'll be discussing on news reporting, which basically will be talking about what are the types of news reports, how do we carry on with these news reports, what is the structure, because journalistic content is about structuring information in a particular way. Often you will see information is not presented in terms of its chronological order. We do not provide information as it happens. The information has a particular structure. So we will provide those structures of news reports. There's one thing which is very peculiar to journalism. This is known as news beats. Every reporter or every journalist covers a particular specialized area. A reporter probably would be going to the same area again and again and again. So he or she kind of becomes an expert in that field, and that is known as a news beat. So it comes from the metaphor beating. So you keep on beating the same thing, so you get to be an expert in that kind of a field. There's a very important concept in journalism, the concept of objectivity, or that is that of impartiality. So in this unit, we'll be discussing on objectivity as well. So we'll be talking about what a news report is, how those news reports are written, what are the structures. We'll be basically talking about some of those important structures. We'll be talking about news beats. We'll be talking about objectivity. We'll be talking about bias and those kind of things. So basically, what is news reporting? So the job of a journalist is pretty easy, it seems. You just have to report what is happening to the best of your ability as quickly as possible. But there are certain do's and don'ts there. Everything, whatever is happening, does not become news. News has to have certain elements there. And we have to satisfy the demands of the audience by providing them a rounded information. The information must be comprehensive, it must be relevant, it must be something that people find useful, it must be presented in a manner in which the information is regarded as believable, it is regarded as credible. So we have to understand that news reporting is a very specialized task where we have to kind of put our information in a particular structure which people will find believable. And one of the reasons why people believe news reports is because they are used to getting the information in that particular order. So once they get an information in that particular order, they understand that it is news. So as providers, as content producers, as journalists, it's our job to provide information in that kind of a format. So news reporting is the process of collecting, verifying and presenting information on current events. That's very important, events which are happening currently. And that's why the term is news. It is a plural form of new. It's not old, it's news. So presenting information on current events to the public. It's one of the fundamental components of journalism because it acts as a bridge between events and audiences. So audiences would not know about the events unless professional journalists or professional news producers do not take it to the audience. So this is the backbone of journalism. It ensures that the public stays informed about the world around them, because we know that press is regarded as the fourth estate of the society. So the real power is with the public, and the public needs to be informed about whatever is happening in the world around them so that they can make their judgments properly. So effective news reporting is crucial for a democratic society because it fosters transparency, it fosters accountability, and it fosters an informed citizenship. Because unless the citizenship is informed, they will not be able to make the right judgments, and if they do not make the right judgments, then the democracy itself will be under threat. So news reporting is essential. It's a vital part of society itself. And we know that news reporting spans various mediums, from traditional print in various languages in the Indian context. It can be Hindi, it can be Gujarati, it can be English, Bengali, Tamil, etc. And each medium presents unique challenges and opportunities for journalists. And we'll be talking about what are these challenges and what are these opportunities. Let's talk about the essence of news reporting. As I said, this is the basics of journalism, because journalism begins with informing people about what is relevant and what is important for them. So we have to understand the essence of news reporting. So the first and foremost requirement of a news report is that it should be correct and verified. And one of the reasons why people believe journalists is because they know that whatever information a journalist is providing is correct and verified. For example, these days journalists are no longer the only content producers. Almost everybody has access to the smartphones, and they are also content producers. They also provide information to people. But a journalistic input or a journalistic output is verified, and that's one of the prime requirements of a news report, that it has to be accurate. Journalists are supposed to maintain impartiality in reporting. What it means is that they provide both sides of the story. So unless we provide both sides of the story, we are not providing the entire holistic picture. So it's the job of a journalist to provide all the sides of the story so that the audience, the readers, they can decide for themselves what is right or what is wrong, or they can understand for themselves the importance of news itself. So because of that, the reporters act as investigators. Their job is to unearth facts, to find out whatever the facts are, as storytellers, weaving narratives. At times they are mediators because they have to provide complex information in an accessible way. So information is not everything. The meaning of the news is important. So often the job of the reporter is to present them in a way that people can make sense of that information, so that that information is something that is useful to them in their everyday life. It must be something which is very real to them, something which is there in something which can be associated with a person's everyday life. And that is why the reporter requires extensive different kinds of skills. It requires investigative research, it requires effective writing, it requires very good communication skills. Often there are decisions of ethics about whether or not to name certain sources or whether or not to name victims in certain cases. For example, most of us would be knowing that if one of the victims is a child, we are not supposed to take the name of the child in any manner, not even by identifying him or her through the parents also. So that ethical decision making is a very important part of journalism, and the ability to analyze and contextualize events. As I said, the meaning of the information is important, not just information itself, what the information actually means. And that's where you have to contextualize events so that people can understand the significance, how significant that event is, and to analyze, to understand what could happen, because often the journalist also has to look at solutions. So these are the very important skills of news reporting. The first thing that a journalist has to do is to gather information. Now in the digital age, a lot of this information is provided suo motu, or it is available through the digital medium itself, because most of the information, many of the official and non-official organizations, they have to put up the information on the website. So that is a very important source of news information which wasn't there in the earlier days. In earlier days, all the information was through people who mattered. So it could be an official source, a person who was an official who was in the position where he had the information, and a good journalist was one who had access to that information, and that information was provided to the general public through the news source. But these days sources can be digital as well. So despite the availability of digital sources, it's very important for journalists to still cultivate a diverse network of informants. So they could be public officials, and public officials have a very important role in the journalistic process because they provide credibility. When I am quoting, say for example, the superintendent of police of a district, he or she is a credible person, and people regard their statement as very, very credible. So that kind of access to public officials journalists anyway have, but they have to cultivate them in a manner in which the public officials know that this is a professional journalist, and he or she is going to use that information in a professional manner for the informational needs of the readers and viewers, etc. At times, there are eyewitnesses who were present in that particular position where their viewpoint is important. So the news reporter will have access to those eyewitnesses as well. And often you have to have subject matter experts, people who are experts in a particular subject. So building long-term relationships with people like them, because as I said, public officials are extremely important, because without public officials, things won't be regarded as credible. Eyewitnesses, they are the ones who provide real information on the spot. Their description is something which is valuable because those people might have witnessed an event about which you are reporting. Plus, there are subject matters who explain the significance or the importance or even the context of these issues. So building long-term relationships based on trust and confidentiality is crucial. So while you build all this trust, it's also important that you independently verify the information provided. So for example, a good reporter would not just limit his report to one or two sources. He will always verify. Even if it's a public official who's coming out with a statement, it has to be verified from other sources, through experts, through digital resources, so on and so forth. Also, the eyewitness accounts must be kind of verified. If they aren't verified, people who are on the ground, they are very close to the event, they might get very excited and they might provide us with information which is not true. So as a reporter, our job is to put out the best possible information. So the importance of on-site reporting cannot be overemphasized, because if you go on the spot, through your own ears and eyes, you can see what is happening, and it allows you to get a nuanced understanding of the situation. Through interviews, through observations, you will be able to get the requisite information, and that is very important. A reporter is as good as his or her sources. So as you would see, the senior reporters are ones who have very good sources. They are very good people's persons. People come out with information for them as regularly as possible, because they know that this information will be used in the best possible manner. So as journalists, despite all the digital infrastructure which is available, developing sources is extremely important. Once the report has been done, although this part is not always the job of a reporter, but if you are writing it for the digital media or whatever, crafting the headline is extremely important, because more often than not, people decide whether they will read the news or not based on the headline. Now in the digital media, and we will talk about that in a future unit as well, there is the problem of a clickbait. The headlines are written in a manner in which they do not summarize the story. The headlines are written so that people click that information to take them to another website. So clickbait is not a good thing to do in journalism. In journalism, the headline must summarize whatever is happening. So the headline serves two primary functions. First of all, to accurately represent the content of the article. as I just said, that if it is just there to kind of induce you into reading the article without providing the content, then it becomes a clickbait. Then it is just like things like, what are the 10 reasons that you become wealthy, so on and so forth. But they do not accurately represent the content of the article. Secondly, they must engage the reader's interest. If you cannot engage the reader's interest, then the headline is not a good headline. So often the deciding factor in whether a story will be read or not read depends on whether the headline is good or not. And as I said, that the headline provides you with the crux of the information, and you must summarize that information. The idea is not just to attract the readers, but also to provide them with information, and that is one of the important functions of the headline. And that's why I keep on separating this with the clickbait headlines that we see in the digital media. So the headline must be clear, it must be concise, it must be relevant, it must be something that matters to the reader. If it does not matter to the reader, then he or she is not going to read it. And engagement. So people do engage with the headlines as well. So headlines should give a clear idea of the story, be concise enough to grasp quickly, relevant to the reader, and engaging enough to provoke curiosity, so that you're curious to find out what's happening. Because if it does not excite your curiosity, you might not even read the headline. And often you might see yourself as a reader. Do you read all the headlines that you come across? No, you don't. You read the ones which you think are relevant for you, which you think are interesting for you, which you think you should know about. So that's where the headline has the important task of bringing the reader inside the story. We also often use something which is known as a strap line in newspapers, in magazines, and in the digital media as well. The strap line is in addition to the headline. Often it is also known as a subheading. It provides additional context or information about the news story. It is a secondary headline. So the headline has the important function. We discussed about what the functions are, where the idea is to provide information, the idea is to provide curiosity, relevance, etc. The strap line provides additional input to that. It complements, that means it adds to the main headline by offering more detail. It clarifies the headline. Often the headline might not provide all the information, so you clarify the headline or present even an additional angle. So the headline is probably talking about the most important thing. You talk about the second most important thing as well. So that somebody who is in two minds about the headline and he sees the strap line, he or she decides, okay, this is another thing that we can do about. So the effective strap lines are concise and informative. They expand upon the headline without repeating information, and they are crafted to maintain the reader's interest and lead them into the body of the article. The lead paragraph, it is also often known as the intro. After the headline, the first one or two paragraphs that you're going to read is the intro, and they are again the most important part of the news story, because whether or not you will continue reading the story depends on how good the intro is. So often the lead or the intro summarizes the entire story. One of the simplest ways of writing the lead, as I said, lead is the first or the second, the first and the second paragraph at times of the news stories. At times it can be just the first paragraph, at times it can be just one single line, but they are the first few words of a news story which at times just summarizes the entire news story. So the lead is crucial in setting the tone and direction of the entire piece. We will be talking of the 5 W's and the 1 H today. I'm sure most of us already know about it. 5 W's are who, means a person. Often it could be a celebrity or a prominent person about what the story is all about. It is what does the story talk about, what is happening. When, the time is at times important. Often when is not important in a news story, but in cases where it happens during a particular event. For example, if it happens during a cricket match, Then when becomes important, where. The place is very important. As we know, certain places are more important than others. So where again is important, why certain thing is happening, and how. So a strong lead would cover much of those 5 W's and 1 H. It does not have to include all the 5 W's and 1 H, only the most important ones. So the lead has to be engaging, it has to be informative, it has to provide a snapshot of the story's core, and the writing style has to be clear, it has to be direct, and it has to be free of jargon, because if it contains too many technical details, then it's not a good writing style. Its purpose is to provide readers with the key points of the story quickly and efficiently. I just spoke about the 5 W's and 1 H, so let me once again emphasize on the 5 W's and the 1 H. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. These are the essential components. If you haven't applied all the 5 W's and 1 H in a story, you haven't completed the story. If you do not provide one of those information, there will be a gap in your information and the readers will feel irritated. You have to provide it, and otherwise it won't be a comprehensive story. So often the reporters use that as a checklist. So each element answers a crucial part of the story. So who identifies the people involved or affected? Who are the people involved? If it's a celebrity, often people want to know about celebrities or prominent people, or at other times it could be people about whom people want to know, about whom readers want to know. So it could be about young students, it could be about a particular community affected by a natural calamity, those kind of things. It could be a good performer, it could be an ordinary person in an extraordinary situation. So who is a very important story, is a very important part of news reporting, because news reporting is about people. It is going to be read by people. So often we want to bring in people into our news stories so that people who are reading that particular story, they get attracted to the story. What? It describes the event or the issue. So that description is important because the story is about this what. What do you want to say? If you want to say something, it has to be there in the news report. The reason why you wrote the news report is because you wanted to describe an event or an issue. So what is that event or an issue? When, again, timeliness is very important because people want to know information which is very new. So that when is a very important part of the story. Where indicates the location. So often we want to know about what is happening around us. So say for example, if I'm sitting in Ahmedabad, for me, where is very important. I want to know whatever is happening around Ahmedabad. Why? Of course, the reasons, and why and how is where the reporting instinct has to come in, because you have to provide the information about why a certain thing is happening or how, the method, the process in which it happened, and the importance, which includes the elements which suggest that why the news is important. So structure of a news article. So news articles generally follow a pyramid structure. The most important, in fact it's an inverted pyramid, the most important information comes right at the first, the lead that we spoke of, and then it is followed by important details and then the background or supplementary information. Because if you are reading just the intro, you should get all the information. If you want more details about the intro, you come down. So that is why this inverted pyramid structure is generally used. It is not the only structure, but this is one of the most popular structures of news writing. Adherence to limits, because you have to understand that people do not have time. You have to say everything in as short an article as possible. So the allotted space or word count is essential. And then you prioritize information. Information which is the most important for my readers should come first, then followed by other important information. The role of the deadlines. So adhering to deadlines is very important for journalism, because if we do not come out with information quickly, we are not doing our job properly. And that's where this clarity comes in. News reporting should be straightforward and easily understandable, and that is why As reporters, we always use as simple a language as possible. We avoid complex jargon. We ensure that the information is accessible to a broad audience. Objectivity is about impartiality, providing information without personal bias, providing balanced views and reporting both sides of an issue, and avoiding bias. We should be vigilant about our own biases also. So when I'm writing a news report, I should stay away from my own likes and dislikes, and that's why we do not like or we do not want subjective languages. So news reporting can be categorized into several types. It can be city news, it can be local news, it can be national news, it can be international news, business news, economics news. So sports often is at the back of the newspaper, but it is one of the most important parts. Business news is very, very important. Again, print and online and television, they have their own different dimensions. For example, the print media has to have in-depth analysis, detailed narratives, comprehensive coverage. Online media offers immediacy and interactivity. Television reporting has to have visuals and auditory elements. In the next section, I will talk about all these things in details. Thank you so much. We'll come back with the next lecture very soon. Thank you so much.